Hey guys, Brendan here, and we are here setting up a Mourning Gecko enclosure. So I love these little Mourning Geckos. I finally decided to bite the bullet and get some for myself. And this is going to be a little setup for hatchling or small Mourning Geckos. As they get bigger, they may need a bigger enclosure. But when they're small, this works just fine. Some people will even say that adults can live just fine in this, and I would say only about a few of them. If you have a good sized colony, I'd put them in something a little bigger. But if you have just a few of them and they're adults, then they would do okay in a tank like this. The first thing that we'll go over actually is the tank. So this is a Reptizoo Nano, I believe, or small. As you can tell, it is quite small. For comparison, this is my gargoyle gecko enclosure. It's a little dirty. I need to clean the water off the sides, and it needs a little touch up with the moss. But yeah, just comparison this to that. So when I say this is very small, I mean this is very small. First thing you'll notice is if you're keeping a nano gecko species, which is what mourning geckos are typically classified, there's a lot of holes. Now, these are probably going to be taped off. You can use just anything that's safe for the gecko. If you're going to be taping it off, make sure that you tape it off on the inside and the outside as well. That way, if there's a sticky part on the underside of the tape, they don't stick to it because they are small and they can damage themselves relatively easy getting stuck to things. So anyway, you can eliminate that risk. I don't know if these holes will be big enough for them to get through, but we will definitely see when they get here, because I do not actually know how small they are yet, at least the ones that I ordered. If they end up being a little smaller than I expected, and I think there's even a slight chance, I am paranoid. I am going to put duct tape over that or something just to keep them from coming in. Over here we got the screen, which is perfect. You can put a light on here, but I wouldn't recommend it because they don't necessarily need it. They're not a gecko species that requires UVB. I don't think there's many gecko species that require. There are a few. They do benefit from it, but they don't need it. Also, lighting in general for these guys, just does more annoyance than good. So I'm not going to use a light for them. Also, finding a light this small is next to impossible unless you're using a heat lamp, which they don't like heat lamps. So there you go. Alrighty, so here it is front opening. I will say that anything front opening for the enclosure is going to be best, just because these guys usually like to cling to the top here. And if you got a top opening lid, you're going to pop this off. Actually, I don't even think this lid comes off. It's actually a part of the enclosure. But if you were to be able to take this off, like I can of this one over here, they would be stuck to this, and you could sometimes squish them. Sometimes they just jump off, and you lose them, and they never come back. The number one thing mourning geckos did, if they escape, they're gone. So try not to let them escape. I know that was kind of a ramble, but on to the next part. Thermometer/humidity gauge by Zoomed. So you don't need to get the Zoomed one, but it is the one that I have the best luck with. People have mixed reviews for this little combo gauge. For me, it's worked just fine. I have one in my gargoyle gecko enclosure over there, and it's been working just fine. I've also been using other tools to make sure the humidity reading is correct, and it does seem to work just fine. I said just fine in 3 times, and maybe I won't say it a fourth. We'll see. So this is something good because humidity is going to be key, just like any gecko species. Also, temperature is key. You don't really want it to be over that 70 range. Once it gets into the 80 and 90s, you're in danger. If it gets under that 70 into the 60s and 50s, you're also in danger. Also, who the heck wants a living space to be 50 or 40 degrees? If you're like that, then good for you, but not my cup of tea. Over here, we got a Fluker's Bend a Branch. Now, before I get into this, I will say that if you can use a natural stick or driftwood or something, do it. But for me, I was trying to build this on a budget, so I went with the cheapest option. Now, these are prone to break, so when I set this up, I'm going to be very careful. If it does break, I do think I have a small stick somewhere that can work in its place. But for now, we're going to try to use the Bend a Branch. It does not have the best reviews, but it does look great if you can get it to work. Put that off to the side because I'm going to show you the next thing. Eco Earth. Moving on from the Eco Earth, which we'll get into in a minute in further detail, I got these arboreal gecko cup feeders. Now, I may or may not use this. It is a little big. Also, they don't really need a water bowl. Spraying is enough to give them the water they need. But I might use this for the gargoyle gecko enclosure, just so he has a secondary. He usually eats off the ground. I know that's weird, but my gecko prefers to eat off the ground. I might actually use this for him, just so he can be inclined to use more of his vertical space. He is a climber, but he doesn't like to eat when he's climbing, so he's a little weirdo, but we'll get him used to it. I might actually just save this for the gargoyle. And that's it. I'm going to get started on the substrate mix and see you guys in a minute. Alrighty, so now we're on to the fun part. So this is Eco Earth. Now this is a substrate that I commonly use. It gets that natural look without being dangerous to the geckos, and this is why I love to use it. Some people will use paper towels for geckos, that's perfectly fine. Some people will use slate, that's fine. For me, I like to use this just because it looks natural without the risk of using something, like sand, which I don't recommend unless you use a certain type, but that's for another video. Going into Eco Earth. So for a tank like that, you need quite a lot of Eco Earth, probably like 2 bricks. I mixed it with some other stuff, as I mentioned before. But since these guys are small, they don't need a lot. You just need enough to kind of cover that little base layer there, and then you should be fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to take about a half brick and then put it into the water. It will dissolve, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's dissolving in just a minute. Okay, so as you guys can see, I broke off a little brick, a little under a half, but it doesn't really need that much. And then I'm going to let it sit in this water, use my hand to kind of break it up a little bit. This will need to dry out a little bit before you put your gecko in. You're going to be spraying it again anyways as you miss the gecko on a daily basis, but for the initial process, let it dry out just a little bit. Doesn't need to be completely dry because this is a gecko that likes its humidity, but it doesn't need to be sopping wet either, because that can cause respiratory infections. Anyways, this part is very messy and doing it with one hand is difficult, so I will fast forward to when it is done, and I'll see you guys in a second. Alrighty, and now I got the Eco Earth in there, so I did not fill it up to that line, just because I want there to be more climbing space. It is a small tank, so as much space as you can utilize the best, and they're not really diggers, so they don't really need a lot of, digging room. Cool, so there's that. Now I'm going to move on to the branch, and then the humidity gauge. So as I was talking about with these wonderful sticks, this one actually arrived to me tangled up, so as I was untangling it, it broke. So there is a way to salvage this. I'm going to take this. It actually was a little too long for the tank anyways. I'm going to snap it in half, and at this point, I'm probably going to... I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to put this part in the bottom in the substrate where the geckos can't get to it. I don't think they're inclined to eat it, but just in case, I don't want them eating whatever this is made out of. And I'm going to stick this in the soil, and then I'll be back in a second. Alrighty, now I will say I do not recommend that stick. It broke, and I had to actually take wire cutters to get it to snap in half. I was able to get a little something decent, a little like snake-looking effect here. I'll probably take this out and put something different in at some point, but for now, this should work. And then up here, I got the little thing pasted on. It just has a piece of Velcro on the back, Velcro tape, so super easy to put on. I don't think I need to show you guys how to do that one. And that is pretty much the basic setup. Put a food cup in, make sure you missed it. You can put a little more things in here for like aesthetics. They don't really need a hide. You can put one in if you want, but they'll mostly spend their time... I mean, honestly, I probably will put like some leaf litter or just something in here that they can get under. Just because, yeah, there's not really any good hiding spaces. So they don't need like a proper hide per se, like something like a leopard gecko would use or a ball python. But they do appreciate little nooks and stuff they can squeeze themselves into for security. So I will probably put leaves in here now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, but other than that, that is it. In a few days, I will post an update video. This tank might look a little bit different. Probably gonna spruce it up a little bit, and I'll update you guys then.